Okay, so I have a confession to make. Remember how in the last video I said that before you could solve a quadratic, it had to equal zero? Well, it turns out that was, okay, I don't want to say it was a lie, but that was a generalization. It turns out you can solve a quadratic before it equals zero if you have square roots, like in the two problems we have here. So if you look at the first one, it has b minus 7 squared equals 36. And in the previous video, what we did was we set it equal to 0 and then took the square roots of both sides. But in these problems, we're already set up where we can take the square root of both sides right now. What I mean by that is, if I took the square root of b minus 7 squared, I would have b minus 7, which is great. I've got my variable isolated. I have b all by itself. And if I took the square root of the other side, the square root of 36, now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the answer is 6. And I'm sorry to tell you, it's not, or I should say it's not only 6. The square root of 36 has two answers. 6 times 6 is 36, but there's another number that multiplied by itself also gives us 36, and it's negative 6. Negative 6 times negative 6 is also 36 because a negative times a negative is a positive. So we have two answers here, positive 6 and negative 6. And one of the ways you can write that is you can do a plus and a minus sign, plus and minus 6. So this is going to have two answers, and the two equations we're going to set up are b minus 7 equals 6 and b minus 7 equals negative 6. And these are the two that we're going to solve to get our two answers. So over here we'll add 7 on both sides, and it turns out this is 13. And then on the other side, we'll add 7 to both sides, and we get 1. So our answers here are 13 and 1. There's actually kind of a slick way you can write this answer right from the beginning. You can add 7 right at the beginning. And if you really want to impress the ladies at your next math party, let me write the answer down here so I can have a lot of space. You can do b equals 7 plus or minus 6. And this is also a perfectly valid way to write this answer. 7 plus 6 is 13, and 7 minus 6 is 1. So you can write the answer separate, 13 and 1, or 7 plus or minus 6. Both of those are great ways to write the answer. Now that one worked out nicely because the square root of 36 was a perfect square, but we're not limited to perfect squares. Over here, x plus 9 squared, if we take the square root of that, we get x plus 9. And we can take the square root of 8 also. Now, before you start typing square root of 8 into the calculator, it's an irrational number. We get a long repeating decimal for square root of 8. Well, I shouldn't say repeating. It doesn't repeat. It's just a long, horrible decimal. So let's not do that. Let's write it as its simplified radical, which is 2 root 2. 8 is 4 times 2, if you forgot how to simplify radicals. This is square root of 4 times the square root of 2, which is 2 root 2. But remember, when you take a square root, there are two answers, a positive and a negative. So positive or negative 2 root 2. Now the slick way to write this is to subtract 9 as your first step and write your answer as x equals negative 9 plus or minus 2 root 2. Again, if you want the attention of the ladies at your next math party, and who doesn't, that is how you would write the answer. If you want to write the answer separately, which is also good, it would be one answer is negative 9 plus 2 root 2, and the other answer is negative 9 minus 2 root 2. And that is also perfectly acceptable way to write this answer. So if you have one side of your parentheses that's, or sorry, one side of your equals that's just a set of parentheses squared, you can take the square root immediately. Now beware, if our set of parentheses was b minus 7 squared minus 3 equals 36, We cannot take the square root of this as our first step because of that minus 3. So to solve this one, we would have to add 3 to the other side first so that the squared was all by itself. If we took the square root of this, that would be unfortunate. The square root of b minus 7 squared minus 3 is pretty gross. It's really not an easy thing to do. So we would want to add 3 to the other side and get it where it was b minus 7 squared equals 39, and then take the square root of both sides. And that's something we'll learn how to do a little later. But for now, if the parenthesis squared is all by itself on one side, you can just take the square root of both sides and then solve that to go to the answer. You'll have two answers usually, one plus and one minus. When I say usually, there's one time where you'll only have one answer, and that's if it equals 0. If instead of equaling 36, this had equaled 0, you'd only have one answer. But if it equals something besides 0, you'll have two answers. Once when you add it, and once when you subtract it, and that's where the plus minus comes in.